Youth is wasted on the young. I've heard this relatively recently, and ever since I heard it, I made it my goal to not waste my youth. And I think I have been. And it's obviously such a subjective question on what it means to waste one's life or waste one's youth. And I think youth is wasted in many different ways. It's wasted by some and never leaving home, especially nowadays, playing video games and just not getting out of the house, not going on adventures, not hanging out with people, not doing any work, not learning, not gaining any experience from the world. I think that's one way youth is wasted. But then it's almost you go to the opposite side of the spectrum and it's wasted in that way too. Wasted in the person who works all day, the person who, after working all day, works at building their future, you know, whatever side hustle they may have or whatever creative endeavor they may have, in hopes of working themselves out of the job that they have to create a future that they love and that they're passionate about. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but in doing so, you seem to waste your youth. You get this thing that you believe is good, almost every youth does, which is money. But if you look at any person with money who is, even 40 years old, but I think going into the later years is better, like 60s, 70s, they say, I'd give all I had up to be your age, give all I had to do it over again and be young. So it's interesting that so many young people will spend every waking hour pursuing a future just to look back and say they wish they had their youth back. Not to rework the 16-hour days, but to take it a little more easy, to enjoy themselves a little more. And it's a very hard thing to balance. Because on the one hand, you don't do the latter statement and you work a job you don't like the rest of your life, but you enjoyed your youth. Say you spent time with friends, family, you went on some adventures, enjoyed your youth, whatever that means to you. But then you have a job that you're not really old enough to, or you're not young enough to take a risk to get out of. Have a family and you have to provide. So you can't do the things that you could have when you were young. But you have experience and memories that you couldn't do now that you did when you were young. So it's hard to say what's wasting your youth. Is the person who spent their 20s traveling and working random dead end jobs just to make some money to buy a plane ticket to go to the next place to work another dead end job? Did that person make the most out of their youth? Or did the person who spent every day working, investing, um, working on their side hustle, working on building a business, and finally getting there at 30, but not having their 20s anymore? Did they waste their youth or did they capitalize on it because now they have a life? The rest of their life is okay. The rest of their life is going to be in doing something they somewhat enjoy, never really having to worry about money, and being able to go on vacations and travel here and there. And I think with all things, it's the middle way is the way, but it's so hard to do. You need to be able to enjoy a day hard at work and a day hard at leisure, and not let the two bleed into each other. Not let your day of hard work be ruined by dreams of leisure, and your day of leisure not be ruined by the reminder that you're not working and the reminder that you're not getting closer to a potential goal or a potential dream. And this is why I think a big reason that youth is wasted on the young. Because, and other than the situation of the person just staying at home all day and playing video games, and I think that's a whole nother almost topic. But like I said, wasting your youth is also subjective. So if somebody really looks back on their life and is glad that they spent all their free time playing video games in their 20s, it's all a perception and it's all subjective, so it doesn't really matter. But I can only speak from experience and what I believe people would think on their deathbeds and what I would think. And I wouldn't be happy with a youth spent in with video games and no real world interactions. But I also wouldn't be happy with the youth spent working 24/7. And when I'm not working at building something so I can not work anymore. I might be grateful for it when I'm 50, but I'll look back on my youth and kind of felt like I wasted it. And then I also don't think I'd be too happy if I just spent it traveling. Traveling for, say 5 years, maybe, or not even like a year or two, or even a couple months. But I mean, that really doesn't give you enough. Yeah, say like a year to 5 years, say, traveling, which is probably a little much, probably more like a year. But say you do that, and then the rest of your life you have to work a dead end job you hate. I don't think it'd be worth it either. So it's so hard not to waste your youth, and it's so subjective. But I think the best way to not waste your youth is balance. It's the middle way. It's spending time with, friends and family while not worrying about work. It's traveling, taking risks, enjoying the opportunities that you have that you'll never have again. But it's also working hard and trying to figure out your future and trying to set yourself up for a future that you can somewhat enjoy, not just front load everything and commit to a life of, working a 9 to 5 you dislike. So it's such a tricky thing. And it almost makes sense why the youth is wasted on the young, because it's hard to imagine anyone capitalizing on youth. Even the people who say it, they only know or feel like they wasted their youth because they have the hindsight. They either have the hindsight that it all worked out or the hindsight that it didn't all work out, and they probably should have spent a little more time, you know, working and reading and whatever it may be when they were young, and not so much time traveling and partying. But hindsight's 2020. It only all makes sense looking backwards. So it's hard. It's hard at the end of the day. And I don't know if anyone really won't waste their youth, because we'll always look back and say, I wish I did that a little different. But I think the best thing we can do is understand that we need to try to set ourselves up for the future, but with also enjoying the freedom and opportunities that we have, but with also enjoying the people that we have, because they won't always be around. And also making friends along the way, and not just only doing what it is you want to do. having some compromise. But it's all just some balance. That's what I'm really realizing as I get older, is that everything is really just balance. On either side of the extremes, it's not a good place to be. It's truly the middle way that is the best. It's having too many friends who you don't really know that well and don't really align with you in any particular way isn't good. But having no friends and never spending time with anyone, that isn't good either. Because, human beings are social creatures. I believe we were put here for one another. We were put here to help other people. And helping can be so many things. It doesn't have to be charity work. It can just be being a friend to somebody. Many of my friends have helped me a lot, and they've never given me, money or, you know, labor, you know what I mean? Like typical charitable acts, but still helped a lot. And it's just, it's just balance, the middle way. Not having too many friends, but still not having no friends, having a good core friends, you know, not always bending to what other people want to do, but never not bending either. Understanding when you need a solo adventure and when it'd be better to have somebody at your side. Understanding when a friendship isn't benefiting you anymore, a job isn't benefiting you anymore, but still not giving up on friends and jobs in general. So I'll conclude this video with the fact that after speaking on the subject, I think looking back, every youth will be wasted and not wasted, because all anyone does is what they believe is best. So all any young or old person is doing is what they believe is best. If you ask anybody if they're wasting their life, they'll tell you no. And even if they do tell you yes, I think deep down they're doing it for a higher good. If you ask, a 20-year-old who's, going to college and working, and he's seeing all of his friends go out and partying, he may say, yeah, it feels like it. But then if you dig a little bit deeper, he'd say, well, I'm doing it for the future, so I'm really not wasting my life. I'm just setting myself up for the future, and I don't believe these other people are. So at the end of the day, all any of us do is what we believe is best. And I think that can give you a good sense of clarity looking back on your life. Because in the moment, you were never doing something that you thought was going to hurt you, that you thought you were going to regret immensely. You never do those things. You always think in some way it's going to benefit you. And you can, looking back on your life, realizing you should have done something differently, you can always, be a good friend to yourself and let yourself know that, it's easy to say that looking backwards. But in that time and in that place, the right way was hard to see. And, habits are very strong, environment's very strong, and just don't beat yourself up too much about it. But do your best not to waste your youth.